Hello there, and welcome to my channel, YouTube Gaming Countdowns. My favorite part of YouTube as a whole, to be honest. I've pretty much been a gamer for as long as I can remember, so it's high time I stepped up and threw my own thoughts and opinions into the mix. And what better way to start than by talking about my personal favorite video game franchises? Before we get started, let me get something out of the way. This channel is gonna be about 90% Nintendo. Why? Because they're the ones I played all my life. Barring my Steam account, Nintendo games are all I own, and pretty much all that I'm likely to talk about. With that out of the way, let's get started. One of the qualities I enjoy most in a video game is attention to detail. I've tried my hand at game design with the Game Maker program before, and while a breakout knockoff is pretty much the best thing I ever created, learning the basics of game design sure helped me appreciate all the effort that went into the video games I play. Just creating a functional video game is a difficult task, so I really admire it when developers go the extra mile to breathe some life into their games, be it through extra animations, Easter eggs, you know, that sort of thing. And the first series on this list does a pretty magnificent job of this. For some reason, I've always gravitated towards light-hearted, colorful games rather than dark, gritty games, and really, you can't get much more light-hearted and colorful than the Kirby series. I mean, sure, the central idea of the games is to devour enemies whole and use their powers to go on a merciless killing spree, but the series has such a charming and playful nature to it that well, okay, a lot of the final bosses are total nightmare fuel. The low difficulty and simplicity of the series can often turn away more experienced players, and it is what keeps it a bit low on my list, though there certainly are challenges to be had in Kirby, especially those boss rushes. But, as mentioned before, it's the little details that make me like these games. Stuff like the Kirby dance, the little animations, and the copyability illustrations really gives the Kirby games a certain charming appeal to them. Oh, and did I mention the music? It's downright brilliant, with upbeat tunes that are hard to get out of my head, and intense boss music that pumps me for battle. Might not be the most challenging series of platformers out there, but certainly one of the best. Science fiction. I haven't really gotten into the genre that much, other than watching the occasional Star Wars movie, but I still love the ideas behind it. Fancy futuristic technology, alien worlds that boggle the imagination, all that good stuff. Naturally, there are piles of video games based on science fiction, but out of the few I've played, one series takes the cake. Here's one I actually don't have much of a history with. I've known about Metroid's existence for a long time, mostly thanks to Smash Bros., but I never actually got into the series until that Wii U Virtual Console deal that sold a few games for next to nothing happened. Super Metroid for 30 cents? How could I resist? So far, I've only played Super Metroid, Samus Returns, and, thanks to another great deal, the Prime Trilogy, but those games were more than enough to land the Metroid series a spot on this list. The Metroid series has a lot going for it. A great sense of exploration and adventure, awesome boss fights, an excellent array of upgradable abilities, clever ways of teaching the player how to play the game without shoving a million tutorials in their face, and one of the series' most definitive traits, an amazing atmosphere. The Metroid series is meticulously attentive to the little details that I love so much. Not only are the environments that Samus traverses richly detailed and diverse, but the little things like rain falling on your visor really draws me into the game. All this and more makes the Metroid universe an immersive and enthralling sci-fi world that was apparently inspired by the Alien films, which doesn't mean much to me considering that I've never seen them, but it's still a neat detail. One of my very earliest and foggiest memories of gaming was briefly playing what I think was Super Mario Bros. Deluxe that someone let me play for a few minutes. That being said, I never actually owned a handheld system of my own until my early teens, when a friend of mine gave me a Game Boy Advance and Pokémon Leaf Green. yeah, I certainly wasn't a part of the Pokemania that pretty much took over all kinds of media upon Pokemon Red and Blue's release. For that matter, there are a lot of main series games I've yet to touch. But wow, playing Leaf Green for the first time was quite a magical experience for me. And why not? The Pokemon games are so well regarded for good reasons. There's the unique multiplayer aspect that was hugely groundbreaking at the time of Pokemon's debut, the wonderful music, the fantastic sense of adventure, the memorable selection of different creatures, or the surprising amount of hidden depth in the battle system. Also, I hear that some of the spin-offs are pretty good, but I haven't tried any yet. I might have been a bit late to the Pokemon party, but it sure is one I'm glad I attended. Now that I'm on the topic of not owning certain systems for a fair stretch of time, I didn't actually own any video game systems at all for a while in my early childhood. I have plenty of fond memories of playing on my cousin's SNES, but at home I played on our family PC. The standout PC games of my early years largely consisted of Humongous Entertainment's fantastic work, cheat coding my way through Age of Empires, and my personal favorite of them all, the Sonic & Knuckles collection. Yeah, oddly enough, I was introduced to Sonic through PC ports of these games, but Sonic 3 & Knuckles is the one that is etched into my mind. I have so many memories of playing that game with my older brother, collecting Chaos Emeralds, finding the little secrets, despising that pyramid zone, me not knowing what deleting was and erasing all of our progress at one point. Good times. However, since I didn't own any Sega systems, or even know about their existence for that matter, I never got into any other Sonic games for a long time. I eventually took notice of the series again, but my library of Sonic games still didn't grow a whole lot. That is, until a Steam sale happened that allowed me to fill in some big gaps in my collection. The Sonic series has certainly had more than a few problems, but the good games it's had are still enough to make it one of my favorites. The Nintendo 64 was the first console I ever owned. That being said, I only owned the few games that came with it and didn't get any new ones for quite a while. Fortunately, I eventually made up for that thanks to used game stores and the Virtual Console, and got to play such masterpieces as the Zelda games, Mario 64, Star Fox 64, and this amazing duo of games. I tend to be a bit of a treasure hunter when it comes to video games. I just get a huge kick out of cramming all manner of collectibles into an inventory, be they common collectibles or plot MacGuffins. So it kinda goes without saying that I love a good collect-a-thon, as it's called. And oh boy, Banjo-Kazooie strikes all the right chords with me. I haven't played any of the spin-offs, or that one, but the original two games narrowly beat out Super Mario Galaxy 2 as my favorite 3D platformers. Sure, there are a few things I don't like, but aside from that, it's got fantastic music, solid platforming, lovable characters, well-designed levels, tons of stuff to collect, fun power-ups and abilities, awesome writing. Really? What more could you want? Oh, and on a side note, Yooka-Laylee is the first Kickstarter I backed. I'm not exactly the type of person who wants to travel to far-off, exotic locations. Yearly summer vacations to America are about all the traveling I've done, and I prefer it that way. I do love the sense of adventure and exploration that some video games give me though, even if my library of adventure games is a little thin. I haven't really gotten into those massive adventure games with mind-bogglingly huge worlds to explore, though I did pick up the excellent Xenoblade Chronicles. I do, however, enjoy the aforementioned Metroid series, and, of course, the grand pioneer of the entire adventure genre. Yeah, this list would feel horribly incomplete to me if I didn't include Zelda, and do I really need to explain why? It's a juggernaut of a franchise that brought all sorts of new ideas to gaming. Is the series flawless? No it isn't. Certain parts of it are downright infuriating, and I'm still not sure why we needed all this timeline nonsense in the first place, but the good qualities of the Zelda series make the negatives look like a drop in Lake Hylia. The exploration, the epic battles, the characters, the music, and so much more. While I didn't own any Zelda games for quite a while, with most of my earlier experiences coming from the aforementioned trips to my cousin's house, I've now played every game in the series except for the Oracle's games, a few spin-offs, the remakes, and the ones we don't talk about. Only question I have now is, how on earth are they gonna top Breath of the Wild? As you might have guessed by now, platformers are my favorite genre. Not too surprising, I guess, considering that Nintendo systems are always overflowing with the things. On that note, it's time to talk about my favorite series of 2D platformers out there. Going back to my ever-so-nostalgic days of playing my cousin's Super Nintendo, there were 4 games that I loved the most. I'll get to one of them in a bit, but the other 3 were these masterpieces. Oh, Rareware, your games really were some of the best. To quote CJS001, it seemed like there was an unwritten rule to the 90s. Whatever Nintendo could do, Rare could do better. I couldn't agree more. Out of all the games Rare has made, the DKC games are my absolute favorite, even if I've only actually 100%ed the first one. They contain everything I could possibly want in a 2D platformer. Challenging yet fair gameplay, graphics that were revolutionary for the time, abundant charm and personality, tons of secrets, fantastic levels, and the soundtrack. I kid you not when I say that DKC has some of my absolute favorite music in all of gaming. After DKC 3, we didn't get another entry in the series for a long time. Sure, we got a great 3D game and some spin-offs, but after Rare left Nintendo, it seemed that we would never get another true DKC game. And then Retro Studios went and rebooted the series, and I couldn't be happier about it. Well, actually I could. Retro, if you decide to make your reboot a trilogy, could you please bring back the Kremlings in the next one? The Tikis were just kind of okay, and the Snowmads were a lot better, but I'd really like to see King K. Rool and his crew back in action. As things currently stand, the RPG is rapidly becoming one of my favorite genres, but that wasn't always the case, as you can see by the complete lack of them thus far. My interest in RPGs skyrocketed a few years ago when I came across something truly special. Something that delivered an experience unlike anything I had ever seen before. That game was Earthbound. Like a lot of people, I first learned about this series through Smash Brothers, but it wasn't until 2013 that I actually got to play Earthbound, and man am I glad I did. I could go on and on about how much I like this game. Maybe I'll go more in depth in another video sometime, but here's the shorter version. Like I've said before, I love it when a game developer really goes the extra mile to breathe some extra life into their game, and Earthbound is pretty much a textbook example of this. The gameplay, which is typically the thing that matters most to me, is kinda simplistic and doesn't offer a whole lot of depth. Although it does have some amazing ideas like the scrolling HP bar and instantly winning against weak enemies. But the main thing I love about Earthbound is its writing and personality. The story is what I like to call carefully and beautifully crafted insanity. Seriously, this game is nuts. The main reason I kept playing Earthbound was to find out what absurdly amazing situation I'd find myself in next. Taking on a crazed cult that wants to paint the world blue, stopping a zombie apocalypse, defending the world from an alien invasion. Like I said, this game is nuts. But don't go thinking that Earthbound is just a nonsensical mess of crazy ideas. Each part of the game was carefully crafted throughout the game's lengthy 5-year development time, and the writing has legitimate wit, heart, and ingenuity. That, and the game is more than capable of taking itself seriously when it wants to, with parts that are heartwarming, gripping, or downright terrifying. Throw in the game's simplistic yet charming visuals and wonderful music, and you've got what I consider a true masterpiece. I eventually got to play Mother 1, aka Earthbound Beginnings, which really needs a remake, but was still really good, and the fan translation of Mother 3, which was absolutely incredible, but Earthbound is still my favorite. And before you ask, yes, I've played Undertale, and yes, I loved it. Fighting games are a genre I've scarcely touched. Granted, I've never even played them that much, but one look at the button combinations is enough to discourage me from trying the majority of them. There is one huge exception, however, and oh, why am I even trying to build this up? Oh, yes. This one. Really, how could I not have this on my list? Super Smash Bros. Is like a Nintendo fan's dream come true. I mean, come on, it's an epic crossover game where tons of Nintendo characters and a few special guests face off. I haven't played the original, and my Melee disc stopped working ages ago, but I've sunk countless hours into Brawl and Smash 4. There's so much for me to love here, from the simple-to-learn, hard-to-master controls, to the character roster, to the fantastic soundtrack, to the huge amount of content that goes into them. However, there are two things about Smash that cement it as my second favorite series. The greatest reason is the heavenly multiplayer experience. Out of all the local multiplayer games I've played, Smash Bros. Is the undisputed champ. Facing off against friends and family in no-holds-barred Smash Bros. Sessions just never gets old to me. But the second reason I love Smash Bros. So much is that it introduced me to some of my favorite series. Before playing Melee, my knowledge of gaming as a whole was very limited, so seeing all these characters I knew nothing about filled me with a sense of wonder and excitement. And it led me to try series I probably wouldn't have given a second glance at otherwise. Pikmin, Golden Sun, Fire Emblem, Metroid, Mega Man, Earthbound, and many more. All games I'm glad I played, and I have Smash Bros. To thank for that. Considering that you know that I'm a Nintendo fan and a platforming fan, by process of elimination, you've probably already guessed what my number one is. Well, here it is. My favorite franchise in gaming, a series that was instrumental in shaping not only Nintendo, but gaming as a whole. Yup, surprise of the decade, my favorite series is Nintendo's flagship franchise, their mascot, the legendary red-capped plumber hero. Where do I even start? Do I even need to explain anything about the Mario series? Mario's influence on gaming is simply legendary. He put Nintendo on the map with Donkey Kong. He revitalized the video game console industry with Super Mario Bros. He brought gaming into 3D with Super Mario 64. Many beloved gaming mascots were made just to compete with this guy. There's no denying Mario's impact on gaming. But hold on, didn't I say that my favorite 2D platformers are the DKC games, and my favorite 3D platformers are Banjo-Kazooie and Tooie? Then why is Mario way up here on my list? Well, although I love the main series Mario platformers a lot, they alone wouldn't have put Mario this high. My favorite trait of the Mario series is its variety and versatility. Yes, I am perfectly aware that one of the biggest complaints people have with the Mario series is that it can be repetitive and formulaic. I won't even try to say that isn't a problem with the series. However, when you look at the Mario series as a whole, it's been taken in a lot of different directions. Mario Kart, Luigi's Mansion, Mario vs. Donkey Kong, Mario Sports, a large part of Smash Bros., or the ones we don't talk about. The collection of spin-offs and sub-series like Yoshi and Wario is a large and diverse set of games. However, there is one spin-off series that I value above all the rest, main series games included. It's common knowledge that Mario games aren't exactly literary masterpieces. Most of the plot in Mario platformers boils down to portly plumber saves princess from tyrannical turtle, and I'm fine with that since I generally prefer simplistic yet charming video games anyway. However, I'd be lying if I said I didn't want a little more depth to the Mario series than what the typical platformer offers, and that's why I love one particular spin-off series so much. My favorite part of all the Mario games can be summed up in 2 words. Mario RPGs. Going back once again to my early childhood memories of playing my cousin's Super Nintendo, there was one game that stood out to me above all the rest. Super Mario RPG Legend of the 7 Stars. The other Mario games were great and all, but this one impressed me more, mainly because it felt more like a real adventure to me. It had a story that was far more engaging with brand new characters, and yup, I got to play as the Koopa King himself. I loved that twist as a kid, and I still do. But the best part was that, although Super Mario RPG sadly didn't get a direct sequel, it got 2 spiritual successors that continued its legacy and even surpassed it with games that continued to do what I loved so much in the original, taking the Mario series to new and interesting places while giving some extra depth to the characters we all know and love.
Well, except maybe the last 2 in the Paper Mario series, but my opinions on those games are as follows, so yeah. I actually don't hate them. Now, before I wrap things up, I'd like to thank some friends of mine who helped me on the artistic side of things. MMS from So OK Here's the Thing. He made the Earthboundian logo.